Hello, everybody. My name is Lara Mitchell from Royal Page Benchmark, and today we have Louise Hopkins from the Space Reclaimers, and we're going to talk about how to organize and declutter. It's springtime; it's perfect time to actually talk about it. But before we do that, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, hey Lara, thank you so much for having me here. I'm Louise Hopkin. I am the owner and founder of the Space Reclaimers, so home organizing. We've been doing this for about 5 years now. So I help clients really release themselves from their stuff and just help people create a space that they really love, right? And now is a really, really appropriate time to sort of be focusing on this and really digging deep into those, like looking around your home and digging deep and seeing why we have so much stuff, why we're feeling overwhelmed with clutter. The sun is shining now, so we're starting to feel kind of like those cobwebs are disappearing. So I feel it's super appropriate. So thank you for having this, Lara. I think it's a really good time to be chatting about this.
Awesome. Well, I've made some list here. Before you give us like the tips of how to declutter and organize, let's get down to the root of this. What is the cause? Why do we even collect clutter? How do we do this?
Yeah, sometimes, like what I find, a lot of people are really super organized, but what happens is we do start collecting clutter and we don't make time for making it a priority. So we don't actually start decluttering items. So to go back a little bit, how I've recognized it is the top 6 reasons of why we collect clutter. So I've put it into an anagram. I think that's the right word. So it's reasons. So retail therapy, emotions, assigned time, I have to spell, S for sentimental, and O for overwhelm, and N for we can't say no. So usually what I find is that people will find 3 of those will really stand out to them. So retail therapy could be, something's emotional happening, could be right now, right? I like that high, that emotion that I get from getting the bargain. So people will be shopping. So that's retail therapy, right? And also they love the outing when we can go to the mall. So then we need to recognize our triggers. It's really, really huge. We really need to know why. And then sentimental is items from somebody, perhaps it's a family member that is no longer with us, or it reminds us of a past life, when you're pre-kids, adult kind of time. So we tend to keep those items. We need to detach ourselves from those. For me, my experience, I've traveled since I was 20. So I've really had to declutter and detach myself and realize it's just stuff, right? It really is just stuff. And that's where we get caught up in it. So that's
I kind of checked some of the boxes on said that the retail, you have time, you go to the mall, it's really a trip, right? Yeah, like you're pretty bang on that description over there.
right.
So, okay, so now those are the root causes. So how do I even begin, an organizing project when I have so many?
Yeah, that's a really great question because now we're spending so much time at home too. So now probably we're getting more projects because we're looking at everything. I've just moved into my new house. So for me, I really realized my style of organizing. So what I do is I have a list. So I write down a list of all my areas, and it could be perhaps the living area, and it could be just that one area. I need to have a desk there. I need more storage. So you need to put those in order of priority. Okay, so and then say, what am I going to get out of that space? So that area is going to keep me organized for paperwork. This area is going to keep me organized where I can put my sentimental items. Okay, so that's how I would start those projects. And then what I do is group everything together. So it's really, really important. So don't have things if we have different level homes, like you have something upstairs, you have I'm trying to think of different things. Like if you have your sentimental items into 3 different areas, group them all together, pick a space where you want to have it. Yes, it's going to be cluttered. And something I do a little bit different is leave those items there for a little while. Okay, it's going to be cluttered. You're going to be like, and overwhelmed. the reason I like doing that is because then you can go back and reassess, reevaluate, and you can really think what you want in that space. Research ideas instead of just kind of going, I need to do this straight away. And then once you do that, then get stuck into the project. Minimize is the biggest thing. And I find when I help clients minimize, they don't need to buy new storage items. They don't need to, because they don't have all that stuff anymore, right? And the way you need to really reassess everything needs to have a spot. Everything needs to have a place. And I know we all know that in the back of our mind, but it can be like, okay, but I really like this item. I could squeeze this in here. What's going to happen? I see you smiling there. Well, what's going to happen is that it's going to be hard to access that item. And it's going to create that kind of messy look again and that mess, right? Yeah. Because kids are going to grab items. They're not going to put it back properly. They're just going to go, okay, it's too hard to reach. I'm just going to reach through everything. And then, does that make sense? Like that's where it causes the clutter. So that's another reason why I like having everything in one area. Then what you do is you go back and you minimize, then you may have to minimize again. So it forces you to do it, to say everything needs a place. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
No, I like the reason why I'm smiling because you're right. Like all of those things, right? It happens, and that's exactly how I do it sometimes, right? So,
right. And I find that's what happens in our kitchen, and people they want to keep all these little gadgets. And it was really interesting. I went through my kitchen. I'm like, I've had these same pots for 20 years, and I'm like, whoa, okay, that's kind of. But it's like it's keeping things that we can still use. We don't need to always have 3 sets of everything. We don't always. So it's really just minimizing, keeping things simple. That's how I really look at everything. Yeah.
Those are great ideas. Now that we have our kids home, I think, how do we get them involved in organizing and decluttering? So they're not like, I think if you get them involved, then they're more inclined to actually keep it organized.
Oh, it's so true. They really are. And actually, it's really surprising. Like kids will really want to get involved. A lot of parents are kind of like, oh, they're gonna kick and scream and not want to do it. They really like getting involved because it's their space, it's their area. Then they get to have a say in it, right? Obviously, it's age appropriate too. And yes, you probably will have a little. The hardest part is getting rid of things with the kids, and it does get easier. So I know because my son he's 10 now, and I've been doing it since day one. And he'll be like, "Mom, where is this gone?" And I'm like, "Well, he's like, you donated it, didn't you? Or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I did, because we didn't need it anymore. So he's like, okay. But that took a few years to get to that point. So what you need to do is you need to lead by example. That is the biggest thing, right? That is where they will take that example. You need to start the conversation now. So the conversation is, other people can use these items. It's also, the conversation is a really great time. I mean, obviously we're right now, but around Christmas and birthdays, because it's like, okay, you're going to get some gifts unless you have said, let's have experiences, but they're always going to get a few gifts, right? So let's start making room for those. You're now a year older, or it's another season. So it kind of has a conversation that way, right? And also, we all like having goals. We all like having rewards. So I am a big fan of saying, okay, if we do this, I guess it's hard again right now, but let's go have an experience. Let's save some money towards perhaps a vacation, or, you know what I mean? Like set a goal, set a reward for them. Like we're all reward incentivized, really, deep down, even as adults.
It's funny you mentioned that, because last week when I was interviewing Carolyn, the teacher, one of her tips is to always incentive the rewards, right?
Oh, okay.
Actually do something. So don't feel guilty about it.
Oh, good. I feel good about that now.
Usually, I think for me, what I usually tell my kids is, okay, so we have to make room for stuff so Papa Jesus can give you more other stuff.
Yes, right? And they get that concept. And it's like, it does take a while. And it really is worth doing those. So it's a process, and I'm not going to lie, it's not easy. But once you keep that going, then they will understand, right? And lead by example.
Yeah. All right. So now so we've organized, we've decluttered, we have this, bunch of stuff. What do we do with it? This donation during COVID-19?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. Right now, I was doing some research because I was helping clients before we were allowed to go into people's homes. So the diabetes donation bins are not accepting. The Goodwill is closed for now. The drop-in center, they do have a list on their website of their most needed items. So that's a really good place. They are actually accepting those most needed or wanted items, but they're actually putting them into a container for 14 days. Then they'll move them inside the store. So there's only certain things they take. So you're really limited. It's going to be tough. But what I'm suggesting is packing things into boxes. Find a space and then tape everything up and label it, and do not go back into those boxes.
Yeah.
Don't let the kids go back. There you go, busted. So don't let the kids or yourself even go back into those boxes, right?
Oh my God, I think that was a huge mistake the other day, because so my husband was trying to go to the the place where the dumpster, right?
Oh,
and
yes.
He went to the storage downstairs, and then he started like breaking this garbage bag. And my mom loves to put old clothes in the garbage bag, and I don't know why we started digging into it. And then it was a mistake. It was a mistake. Yeah. I should have just said, I was never looking for it, so it should go.
Yes.
But yeah, I've kind of like reclaimed some of this.
It's an instinct, right? It's kind of like, because if you're a little bit on the borderline, and I've never had a client when we have donated something, they've never gone, oh, I really wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. But it's that when you see it again, those emotions and those feelings come back again, right? And it's like, and it's too tempting. So definitely don't go back into those boxes.
Right. All right. So now the last question that I have here. How do I stop online shopping? We parents, because now we have time, we're just really browsing.
Yes, it's a great question. And actually, I know you and I were chatting about that. Like, I'm even doing it myself for business, looking for supplies and things because we have time, and it's like, okay. But what you need to do is have that conversation with yourself. So we have heard that before, but it's setting rules and guidelines, right? I think we've heard of like one in, one out kind of rule. But the biggest thing I like to say is, if you see a great deal, it's only a deal or a bargain if you actually need it and if you have a spot for it. Right? So it's having those conversations with you. So noticing that you're actually shopping for something, so have those rules. Say, don't buy duplicates, don't buy freebies, because often they're not always freebies, right? Like, or get, if I buy this, you get this for free.
Yeah.
You're still spending money and it still may not have a spot for it, right? So another one I quite like to do is say, stick with your brand. So if you have a favorite brand of things, right? So you like a really nice brand, clothing brand, or like I love Apple, that kind of thing. Stick with those brands. Don't get tempted to go kind of sideways. Oh, because that's cheaper, so I could have that as well as the brand that I'm looking for. Does that make sense? So then you're kind of like, that way you don't get sidetracked by all the other different things that are out there. And also you need to be able to identify how you're going to use this item, and when you're going to use it and how often. So if you're looking, and if you're buying something for, let's say for the kitchen, one of those gadgets, it's like, oh, this is great, I'll use it once a year, but we have family coming for that. Is it worth that that space in your kitchen to be taken up by that one item? And also another one just is have a goal. Like if you have a goal, perhaps you want to save up for, saying vacations or that bigger purchase item. just have that in the back of your mind, right? And just say, if I spend this money, this could go towards that item. So just really having that conversation with yourself and just realizing, do I really need this item? And also noticing when that trigger happens, go do something else. During these times, it's a little harder, but you can go for a walk. Even just perhaps take yourself away, go read a book, go play with the kids. Maybe we're all homeschooling, right? So maybe go do some more, no, just kidding, homeschooling. But the kids will love that, right? They're like, go shopping, Mom. But just really, just notice those triggers and just like turn yourself to a different direction and go do something else. Yeah, I think that really helps. So, yeah.
Great. Well, if people wanted to hire you, because we obviously need help, and there's a lot of information, right, that needs to be deep dive into. Like, where can they contact you?
Yeah, for sure. So I have my website, so thespacereclaimers.ca. So right now what I'm actually doing is offering virtual organizing. So we would do kind of like this, exactly, Zoom. You would show me the area, we chat. I also have Facebook Who Loves to Organize, and a Facebook business page as well, the Space Reclaimers. But I do have like blogs, and I have a quiz as well, which is kind of neat because it gets into those reasons of why we collect stuff with some tips and strategies. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. I know it's kind of struggle for us parents to be working at home with our kids, but I really do appreciate it, and I think most of our moms, our viewers will actually appreciate this, because now that they have more time, it's spring, it's so timely, and that they have a lot of time to organize and declutter.
Right. And with yourself, Lara, is it busy with the real estate right now? How is that? Because spring is usually a busy time, right?
Yes. Well, we're not going to have a spring, but I think we're going to have a delayed spring. So as of last week, there was about 117 homes that were sold in the city. We're down about 74% in sales, but surprisingly, it's not too bad, right? So people still need to move, and still people needs to sell. So, as expected, it's slower, but there's still some movement.
That's excellent. It's a really tough time for everybody. Like and I think it's just, we need to stay strong, and just everybody needs to stay positive, and things like this I think is really helpful. And I think, what you're doing is great. Thank you for that, Lara.
You're welcome. All right. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.